picture.
Started
It's like
February.
so,
Very
yeah,
soon.
I can't believe it. Well, I have a lot of people that want to see it
She's
again.
looking at
So,
it.
okay, but this is the new and improved
start it?
version of starring the Grinch. My guide to surviving the holidays. So why are holidays hard? I mean, they're just like any other time of the year, right?
Sugar cookies.
So why does everyone want to bail on me in November or December? Because it's 6 weeks of delicious eating.
Yes. And indulgence.
Yeah.
Sugar cookies with icing.
It's emotion tied to food. True.
It's my calendar is overpacked already.
Mine is too, and guess what? I have a problem staying on track. I don't want to end the show. My clickers, a little crazy.
I did it.
Check the USB. Sorry. You need to do that. Okay.
Okay, can you click back there?
There we go.
Okay.
Okay. So, right, we have lots of high sugar, high fat foods. Sometimes we go places and they don't have options. Our routine is crazy and we're a lot of times overbooked. We have to travel. We're excited, so our inhibitions get a little bit lowered. We have multiple events and parties. We have family and social pressure and a sense of rewarding ourselves sometimes. So quick review. How many guests? Do we have any guests here?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm gonna breeze through this. It's alright if you don't get it. They've all had this. Where do we get energy from? First place, from the food that we eat. If we haven't eaten, like overnight, or you're for some reason not eating for an entire day, the next place we're gonna go is our liver, which holds glycogen, or excess carbohydrates that we don't need right now. The very last place we go is body fat. Who has been through week 1 with me? Who remembers what it feels like to use up all the carbs that are stored? Do you want to do that again?
No.
Do you like what the scale did the first week?
Yes.
Okay. But then we got here and the scale went a little bit slower. On the program, what we want to do is only use the food that we're eating and body fat. We don't want to store any excess carbohydrates, this glycogen. So we get to completely skip a step in there. Most people have about 2 days worth of stored glycogen. That's just an average. So once we get through that, we're just using body fat and what we eat. Usually when you're here, you feel pretty stable. Anyone in here feel stable, not hungry? We get a lot of really new people. So the roller coaster effect of eating high sugar foods. We eat a high sugar food. It causes our blood sugar to raise really quickly. Our little friend insulin comes in and causes our blood sugar to drop really quickly. And how do we feel at the bottom? After Thanksgiving. We're tired, and we often have cravings. So then we eat something else. We eat some more pumpkin pie, which causes our blood sugar to drop really low again. Up and down all day long. We want to avoid this roller coaster. So here's the cycle. We eat a high glycemic index meal, or a high sugar meal. Spikes our blood sugar and insulin levels, which puts us in low blood sugar. Guess what? We get hungrier, then we crave sugar, so what do? Eat more sugar. Christmas cookies can get you on this spiral. Anyone ever had a Christmas cookie and then couldn't stop eating Christmas cookies? Has anyone ever had a chicken breast and broccoli and couldn't stop eating the chicken breast and broccoli? Yeah, the taste has something to do with it, but there is a physiological. Did someone in here has that problem? There's a physiological reason behind that. We're going to talk about what I think is probably the biggest hang-up, which is the emotional component or the psychological processes that go on. But realize when you have that first Christmas cookie, it is more difficult physiologically because of blood sugar levels to stop. If you've been stable and then happen to get unstable, you know how uncomfortable that is. So what happens when we get on a cycle of Christmas cookies? Well, we don't need all of those right now, so we're going to have to store them. We're going to store them here in our liver. When this gets filled up, and it doesn't take much to fill up your liver glycogen. Relaxed meal, that's enough to fill it up. Everything else goes here. So over the holidays, if we eat one Christmas cookie, we might store a little bit in our liver. But if we eat 6 Christmas cookies, this gets full, now we start storing here. And guess what we have to do? We have to get rid of this again. And you get to go back and relive week 1, going through depletion. For every gram of carbohydrate that we store, and it's pretty easy to rack up carbohydrate points, as you guys know. For every gram that we store, we also store 3 grams of water. So it's very dense, it's heavy. When we eat a little bit extra on the holidays, and we store a little bit of carbohydrate here, it's going to show up on the scale. Usually about 2 to 3 pounds. You can work that off, we can get you back on track, but if you keep eating and start going here, we have to work our way all the way back. And it can take, if you have a relaxed weekend, I have seen relaxed weekends take people 2 weeks to get off. And then they're like, I don't want to go back there. So just keep that in mind physiologically what's happening as far as metabolically when we overeat. It doesn't, just because we don't write down that we were eating cookie dough while we were baking, it still gets stored. So you can deny it all you want. You can log it if you want. But know that this is happening regardless of whether you want to admit it or not. And insulin, yes, it makes us unstable, but it's also our storage hormone. Whenever we have an insulin spike, and we eat those high glycemic or sugary foods, we get insulin, which causes our fat cells to become a sponge. And anything extra you eat goes straight to body fat. And all the fat you've been burning, you're not putting yourself back in fat storage mode. And if there's any place that you don't like where you look, usually your hips, your thighs, your lower abdominals, the backside of your arm, insulin's responsible for putting fat there. So if you want to get rid of your trouble areas, keep insulin at bay. And this is, people that are getting really close to their goal weight and they have one specific area they want to target. You really can't technically spot reduce, but I can tell you it's usually one of these areas that they're concerned about. So the emotional eating part, I think, is really where I want to spend my time. You just understand a little bit of the physiology, but what's happening up here is really what drives these fears about the holidays. So what happens when we emotionally eat? Well, we need to relieve stress. We're anxious. It could be good stress. We could be celebrating. It could be just that there's all these Christmas cookies and I feel like I just need to take a break from dieting. Guess what? You just justified eating them. So you eat them or eat more, and that stresses you out. And I know it does because I get your email the next day and I can tell that you're highly anxious and you use bad language that usually, not bad words, sometimes bad words, but you use words like I failed, I feel terrible about myself, I'm never going to lose weight. You're stressed. Guess what? You need to relieve that stress. Well, I already messed up yesterday, so what does it matter if I do it today? So eat more. That causes you more stress. And you get into this cycle. Has anyone ever in your life been on this? Yes. And I can tell you, if you stop here and think about what happens physiologically, you can stop that cycle at any point. If you continue on it, you're just going to continue to store. I think for me that makes, knowing this cycle and the fact of what's happening, like, okay, I've already overeaten way too much. If I have another cookie, it's just going to take me that much longer to burn it off. That helps me personally when I'm objective about it. So same thing, just a different type of cycle. We have a craving, so we overeat. We feel bad about it. Well, I'm just going to go off the diet for November and December and start back in January when I'll have motivation. And then you gain weight over the holidays. That makes you feel anxious, and you have increased feelings of shame. You have an increased resolve to diet. Okay, January 1, I'm gonna get back on it. January 1, you start cutting your calories really low, and you're gonna go to the gym now. Never been to the gym, but we're gonna go back on the RX, and we're gonna exercise. That's not enough food, so guess what? You're gonna get cravings. In the second week of January, here you are again, back on this cycle. Who has been here? Who wants to get off of those cycles and stop? And it's okay if you don't want to. I'm just showing you like what, if your goal is weight loss, some of these things that we do are, they're physiological, and there's some things that if you understand about what's going on psychologically, it's a lot easier to stop the cycle halfway through instead of continuing on it. So the first thing we have to do is reprogram the way that we think. Food is not a reward. Yes, I'm glad you went to the gym. That's awesome. But if you eat 3 slices of pumpkin pie, it doesn't matter that you worked out. It still gets stored. Food is not love. When your mom makes you cookies, and I'm going to make you guys do this at some point as the Grinch, you are going to have to take a present, food present that someone got you, and throw it away. And that does not, I know, it just makes you uncomfortable. Every time I tell people that, their eyes are just like, I can't do it. That you don't love them any less, but your goal is not consistent with that. You can still, I love my mom dearly, I love patients that bring me things all the time. I don't love them any less, but I want to stay on track. So I'm going to make you guys get a little uncomfortable and throw something away. Because if it's in your house, what's going to happen? You're going to eat it. And normally I give things away a lot, but I'm going to make you get really uncomfortable. Food does not make you happy. In fact, eating excessive food really makes you sad and feel bad. It does not give you security. It makes most of my clients, when they start, they feel very insecure. It doesn't give us comfort. It can. At times, certain foods are comforting, and that's okay as long as we're assessing and aware of what we're doing and it's fitting in our plan. But food's also not our enemy. I want you to have foods that are familiar during the holidays. I want you to eat your grandmother's pumpkin pie. It's not the enemy, but we have to be smart about the way that we do it. And there's anything that comes up over the holidays, we can fit into your plan one way or another. Who was here for my self-sabotage seminar? So you see this graphic?
Yes.
It's funny, I was pointing, I'm like, when did I do that? We did a seminar on self-sabotage, and I did it in February. And I'm like, it was because people after the holidays thought they were gonna like gung-ho it the first of the year, and by February they're like, why am I sabotaging myself? So our subconscious mind actually controls 90% of everything we do. Our conscious mind, what we're actually aware of, is only 10%. So right now, your heart is beating, you're digesting food, your hands are somewhere, your feet are somewhere. There's actually a little sound coming from that vent right there. But are you aware of those things until I bring your attention to them? No. They're going on, but we filter out 90% of everything. Our body can function and it goes on and we have thoughts, but 90% of that happens below our awareness. We're kind of stupid, I guess, and we can only have 10% of what's going on actually at the front of our brain that we're paying attention to. So what is in our conscious mind? It analyzes, it thinks, it plans. It's our short-term memory. It's what's doing your dieting and logging on a daily basis. But also what's going into that is everything down here in our subconscious, which is what you're not actually aware of, but it's happening all the time in your brain. So your long-term memories, your feelings and emotions, your habits, relationship patterns and addictions, involuntary bodily functions, digesting food, creativity, and spiritual connection and intuition. So all of these things are going on in the back of your mind that you're not aware of, but they're driving what happens up here. So some subconscious associations. If someone is lying, they'll tend to itch their nose. And what it is, there's a catecholamine release, and so it makes your nose kind of red and itchy, and so it'll scratch your nose. A lot of times in my office, I'll ask my patients, they're like, my back's not getting any better. Well, are you doing your exercises? No. I mean, sometimes it's not that obvious. Sometimes they'll just kind of like wipe their nose. So anyone in here that makes it lying to us? Have you ever smelled perfume and it reminded you of the opposite sex or reminded you of a person? It's all a subconscious memory. They use it in aromatherapy. The scent of lavender makes you relaxed. And it's all based on past associations. I love this one. Spraying citrus can make your significant other more likely to do housework because it smells of freshness. I don't know that it's ever worked, but if it does. And our perception. So if they show two pictures, one person's smiling and one person's frowning, people will automatically think the person who's smiling is more intelligent and more attractive. And it's just based on past associations, has nothing to do with what you're actually seeing or experiencing. Through our associations, we automatically feel things. So through the association that you have had with pumpkin pie, that when I say pumpkin pie, you automatically feel something. What is, name a Thanksgiving dessert?
Pecan pie.
Pecan pie, which is what I was thinking. I did not grow up on pecan pie. So people could say pecan pie all day long and I'd be like, huh? But it's the associations that I've had with pumpkin pie, and that's what we had every Thanksgiving, that I relate to, and it brings me a nice feeling. I think happy thoughts when I think of pumpkin pie. That's probably why I use it as an example. Our brain likes to do things that are easy. It likes to do, like pumpkin pie, I like that. It doesn't like to take unusual or unfamiliar routes. So, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but our brains actually change. It's called neuroplasticity. If anyone heard Corey talk, she talked about neuroplasticity, and that's our brain's ability to change pathways. So when I say pumpkin pie, I automatically get happy thoughts, I feel good, I want it. If we pay attention to some of that and actually change the way that we think, which can be a little uncomfortable at first, eventually our brain changes. The brain pathways change, and we can make long-term changes in how we relate to food. We change our relationship with food. So in our conscious mind, we can really want to do something. I want to diet, I can log, I can do this, but underlying all of that is our subconscious, and willpower is not enough. If you have all of these strongly tied emotions to food, no matter what you want at the top 10% of your brain, all of the stuff underneath is driving and really making the decisions for you. And that's where the self-sabotaging comes in. But our subconscious, it's not, we can tap into it. It's right below our level of consciousness, and we can bring things to the surface. So I can say, how does your right hand feel right now? Were you aware of it before I said that? No. But now you are. I can see, where's your pinky toe on your left foot? Does it feel warm? Does it feel cold? Does it hurt because your shoes are too tight like mine? It's all going on, and it's accessible, it's right there. I think some people think they're subconscious, they can't tap into it, so let's not even bother. No, it's right there. You just have to direct your attention to it. And we have to get our subconscious on board, we have to look at the stories that we've told ourselves. And these are things that we know from experience, from what we've always done. We create a story. Like, I have to have a glass of wine on Friday night. You don't have to have a glass of wine on Friday night. In fact, most of my clients don't. But that is a story that you have told yourself, and you have to change that story. You have to rewrite it. On Friday nights, I'm going to go bowling with the kids instead of having my glass of wine. I have to bake Christmas, I heard this from someone in the room. I have to, in big capitals, I have to make Christmas cookies for my mother and brother. I'm like, you don't have to, you can, it's not, but you become so ingrained in you that you think you have to do certain things, and there are other options. Our brain doesn't like to choose those other options and explore them. But think of some of the stories that you have told yourself and what is true and what's not true about that. Can you click on this link for me? This is just a little YouTube video.
This is a test of selective attention. Count how many times the player's wearing white pass the basketball. How many passes did you count? The correct answer is 15 passes. But did you see the gorilla?
Yes.
Did anyone not see the gorilla?
I did not.
There are other better ones, but this is a classic. So why didn't you see the gorilla? You weren't focused. You were focused on one thing. Our brains process, there's like a filter. There's all this sensory information coming in. There's noises around, there's like fluttering little particles coming in the light there. You're just filtering all that out. Because hopefully you're listening to me or you're thinking about what you're going to Facebook when you get home. But you can't take in everything that's around you. So our brain filters that out. And that's what selective attention is. Who in here is guilty of this?
I am.
Yeah, this is me. Who in here has ever, I do this, and Corey gets mad at me, so I'm not supposed to do this, but who in here has ever eaten something and been like, where did it go? I will literally, Kim can tell you, I'll be so caught up doing all these things, and I'm like, where did my protein bar go? But did I eat that? And I'll have to look in the garbage can, and this is just me being honest, I'll have to look in the garbage can to see if I ate it. Do you think that meal satisfied me at all?
No.
Absolutely not. I had no attention to my food. And whenever we eat, I want you to be aware that you're eating. If you're making Christmas cookies and you want to eat the batter, put the batter on a plate and sit down and eat it. Don't just sit there and like lick here and be intentional about eating. I'm not picking on you. Because other people, they do it. We eat in the car, we eat while we're on the phone, and chips and almonds are like pita chips, almonds. If you sit and you're checking Facebook and answering emails, how quickly can you overeat them? Especially when it comes to the holidays and there's something you want to eat. You can eat anything you want, but you have to put your attention into eating. And when you eat, you sit and you eat. You do nothing else. If you're gonna have, I don't keep saying pumpkin pie, peanut clusters, because they're my favorite. If I'm gonna have peanut cluster, they're easy, I can grab it and walk around, but I haven't really experienced that, and that's what I want. So if you're going to eat something, and especially as protein bar to me is like no big deal, but if it were something that I really wanted to enjoy, I would sit and I wouldn't do anything else while I ate it. Like especially a dessert or my relaxed meal, I'm eating. I'm not distracted by other things. Along these lines, have you ever had food stare at you?
It screams from the shelves at the grocery store.
Yeah. I've had like cookies stare at me and cake. Exposure to food cues, which is either the smell of food or the sight of food, especially in people that are chronic dieters or have dieted a lot, will automatically direct their attention toward those food items. So when I can walk down the grocery store aisle and the ding-dongs, like I could care less. I don't hear the muffins singing to me. I can tell you when I was competing though, my attention was all on the things I couldn't, I was a very restrictive plan, not for Dr. Joe. But I remember feeling like, oh my gosh, I have to get out of the cookie aisle. I mean, how silly is that? I was having fear and panic about a cookie aisle. But we've all been there. There's a plate of cookies across the room and you're like, I have to get out of here. But part of that is because of selective attention, there could be a million things going on in that room and someone could be having a conversation and all you're thinking about is this plate of cookies over here. I mean, you've all done it, I know you have. So that can make it difficult for you to resist them. Restrained eaters, people that are on a diet, I don't like to call us restrained eaters, I don't think we are, but people that have eliminations in their diet, like they're cutting carbs or they're leaving out food groups, or we say you can't have pie. It's the first thing you want. It's the first thing you want. They are especially sensitive to food cues. So seeing, this is my favorite one, Jimmy John's, free smells. Do you know why they give out free smells? Because they know that people are sensitive to food cues, and when they smell the bread, you want Jimmy John's. We're also very sensitive, or restrained eaters are sensitive to the pleasurable aspects of food. So that free smell, or the smell of Christmas cookies baking, is going to bring up a lot of pleasurable feelings for them. At that moment, the ultimate goal of weight loss becomes temporary inaccessible. Your awareness is on the pleasurable aspect of food, and the long-term goal doesn't seem that important. So short-term pleasure becomes like right now, I want Jimmy John's, I want the cookie right now. That becomes more important than your long-term goal. I got so small. So then that kind of brings us to this issue of willpower. The American Psychological Association did a survey on stress in Americans, and they cited that the lack of willpower was the #1 reason for people not being able to make healthy lifestyle changes. Whether that's smoking, drinking, drugs, exercising, people said they didn't have the willpower. A survey called Stress in America said lack of willpower is the most significant barrier to the way we change. Most people believe that willpower can be learned and strengthened with practice.
Sorry.
Never mind. Come on in.
Hi.
And in these studies, people often stated that if they had more time, they would have more willpower. Does anyone in here feel like if they had more time, they would have more willpower? Like if I had time to devote to strengthening my willpower. But yeah, it makes sense to me that it's not true, because when you have more time, it doesn't become easier not to eat. I think
You get more focused on what you can't have, or what you think you can't
and I
have.
think for me, staying busy helps, but people, across the board in America think if I just had people that are stressed, we're talking about stress here, if I had more time, I could devote it to willpower. And that's one of those false stories that we tell ourselves. So self-regulation of willpower, it's really the ability to act in your long-term interest. It's the ability to resist the right now, impulsive, I want to feel good right at this second, knowing that if you bypass that and let yourself get a little uncomfortable when you meet a goal, whether it's a short-term goal, it's going to feel a whole lot better than the moment you had that cookie. And you're also going to set yourself up for that emotional eating cycle where you start to feel bad and blame yourself, and you don't want any of that. But the ability to resist it right now because I know that my long-term goal is more important. Self-regulation relates to willpower because it's the ability to calm yourself down and also the ability to cheer yourself up. You're able to regulate yourself. When you're anxious, you're stressed, you're ready to pull your hair out and shoot your husband, it's the ability to calm down and not eat a box of Oreos. It requires practice and attention to how you're feeling. And you must be able to delay gratification. Who in here has children or grandchildren? Do you let them eat cookies before dinner? No. No. Can they have cookies before bed? Or if they do something, depending on who you are? You have to delay their gratification. Kids are very impulsive. They want it right now. I've had my 3-year-old kicking and screaming on the floor because he couldn't have a cookie or a snack right before dinner time. I have clients kick and scream because they can't have a cookie right before dinner time too. But we have to be able to delay our gratification, knowing that at the end, if we don't feel impulsive and give into that right now, the end result will be better. I've had several, and they actually did some studies. They use children a lot of times when they're researching willpower and self-regulation and self-control, because you're kind of getting children at like their rawest state. But what they would do is they would tell a child in a room, they put them in a room with a plate of marshmallows, and they say, you can have 1 marshmallow now, or I'm going to leave the room, and when I come back, you can have 2 marshmallows. They did another study where they told kids, you can have $1 right now, or you can wait, and next week get $2. And I think the results are, I've had a lot of clients lately. I know the holidays are coming up. They feel very guilty that they've spent money on the program. And they feel really guilty for taking time to do this for themselves. Like, this is too much time I'm taking away from my kids. But the results of these studies of delayed gratification and willpower, I think are really important to understand. Of the students who were able to show self-control, it correlated with higher grade point averages, higher self-esteem, less binge eating and alcohol use, and better relationship skills. Self-control in childhood results in adults with greater mental and physical health, fewer substance abuse problems, better saving behavior, and financial security. Who in here would want that for their children? If you do not have self-control in your life, your children see that, and they grow up seeing that. I grew up, Kim and I both went through counseling with Corey because of behaviors that we saw and took into adult life that were unhealthy as far as eating. When you show self-restraint yourself, your kids learn that from you. They learn and they model off of your behavior. I know Stephanie can probably attest to huge changes in her kids and how they model after her. So it upsets me when I see women not taking the time, or men too, Paul. But people feeling guilty for doing this, because it's really not a superficial journey. You're really learning skills, and your why has to be because I want control of my entire life, so that I can teach that and model that for my children and my family and my friends. So I thought that was just really important. The problem is willpower is limited. We don't have like this abundance of it. It gets depleted. Because really, willpower is just self-control. So if you go to work, you have to have self-control. First of all, to get to work, and then how you behave at work when your boss is a jerk. That takes self-control. You come home and your kids are a nightmare and you want to scream and yell at them. That takes self-control. You've had to resist temptations and food cues from free smells and Hardee's commercials all day. Your willpower gets depleted. So at the end of the night, you're like, screw it. Anyone been here? I think we all have. So any event that requires self-control, relationships with people, relationships with your friends, looking at Facebook and not commenting on someone's stupid post, that takes self-control and restraint. And the more distractions that we have, I do have to tell some of my clients to stop with the distractions. Every time you text and look at Facebook and do all this stuff that's nonsense, it depletes your ability to have control of yourself. You've done it all day long. So avoiding and eliminating some things that cause you to become depleted are very important. It's interesting though that this is not related to physical fatigue at all. Willpower depletion, they've done studies where they keep people up all night long. And they had the same result with people that had plenty of sleep. So being busy and being rested doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have more or less willpower. And exerting willpower in one sphere can undermine your capacity to do it in other areas of your life. I think with bariatric surgery, there's a high rate of addiction to other things in people that have had bariatric surgery. And people that do like extreme diets, like the liquid diets, they actually become alcoholics, or they start smoking, or they start gambling, because they're putting so much willpower into this one sphere of their life, they're depleted in other areas. Teeny tiny print. So, what can we do about that? Who in here wants to have self-control? I like to say self-control, not willpower, and more of it. Well, I'm going to bring this point in about glucose. The brain requires glucose, and when it's working on overdrive and your willpower and self-control are getting depleted, restoring glucose can help reboot. Run down willpower, that makes sense. It can help reboot your willpower. Don't take this meaning, I put my little Grinch here, that you should eat sugar. I mean, with alcoholics, a lot of times they'll feed them sugar because the brain is detoxing. That's the only reason I bring that up, because I don't want to confuse you. But eating a little bit can help your willpower. If you go into a party and you haven't eaten anything right beforehand, your willpower is a little bit depleted in that instance. So I'll often tell people, eat a little something before you go. There's a metabolic reason for that too. This is probably one that works the best for me. Lifting my spirits is shown to improve willpower. And Paul will tell you, he'll be like, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed. He's like, what can I do? I'm like, make me laugh. Send me a funny YouTube video, just something to lift my spirits, and that will improve your willpower. Minimizing the impact of your environment. So, minimizing, if there's a plate of cookies, don't put it in your office. Don't keep a candy dish on your desk that you're going to have to fight that temptation all day long. I don't keep candy dishes out at my house. All of the candy is put away in a cabinet, out of sight, out of mind. My kids don't see it. They're not tempted by it. I don't see it. Halloween candy, I know Kim puts it in her freezer so that it has to be intentional for her to eat it. If Christmas cookies are going to be your downfall, you do not have to bake. I still bake. I significantly decreased it, and as soon as I've made it, I have a small portion for myself. Everything else goes out the door immediately. It does not stay in my house. Because having it around and me looking at it, my selective attention goes right to it. I'll be up in my bed and I'll be thinking about the Texas sheet cake downstairs. So minimizing your environment and not keeping stuff. I have to keep things in my house that I wouldn't eat. But I try to pick things that my kids like that maybe I'm not crazy about, so that I won't. With Halloween candy, I know I bought stuff that they like, but Smarties, I would never eat those. I just don't like them. So minimizing the food cues and temptations. Implementation intention is having an if-then. If I go to the party and someone hands me a plate of cookies, then I will I'm not going to throw it in their face. Then I will take it to work tomorrow and leave it in the break room, but not put it on my desk. If I go to a cocktail party and there's nothing for me to eat, then I will have a protein bar in my purse. Having a strategy to deal with things where you might be tempted is going to make you much more successful. If you walk into a party and you're hungry and there's a bunch of appetizers, someone here has a fear of appetizers at cocktail parties. But if you know that you have a strategy to deal with that, it's going to be a lot easier to be like, I don't need the appetizers, I can eat a protein bar now and something when I get home. High motivation, even if it's intrinsic, helps strengthen willpower. So if I said everyone who reaches their goal gets $1,000 at the end of the month, would you guys all have a little bit more willpower? I'm not going to give you $1,000.
Why don't you try it and see what
But having motivation, whether it's an expensive shirt that you wouldn't have purchase for yourself until you get to a certain goal. Or, I mean, even if it's a meal, or not that we want to use food as a reward, but if it motivates you to say, if I get through this week and the cookies are at the end, I won't eat any of the cookies while I'm baking, but on Friday I'm going to delay my gratification, that can increase your willpower to stay on track the rest of the week. I think the relaxed meal helps people stay motivated. You know, there's a metabolic reason for it. So, put things extrinsically that will help keep you going throughout the week, knowing that you can have it at the end. Physical exercise will actually help strengthen willpower, which is kind of lopsided for some people. For me, I like to exercise, so it does help strengthen willpower. If it takes a lot of willpower for you to go to the gym, that might take away some of it. So it kind of depends on the person. Using willpower helps to strengthen willpower, like a muscle. So if I say no to an Oreo today, that helps me tomorrow when there's a Texas cheesecake that I really like, that I didn't die without an Oreo. I can maybe do it again. And as you continue to practice, willpower gets stronger and stronger. But you still will have to do some of these other things in order to be successful in the long term. So self-awareness and assessment can help prevent, can help to prevent willpower depletion. And having tools in your toolbox other than willpower. Being able to, willpower, you have none, and what else are you going to do? What else do you have? Do you have a friend? Do you have a support team? Do you have a spouse? Do you have me? You don't have me. But what are you going to use? Can you take a walk? Can you do something with your children? Something else when you just know your willpower is at its very lowest, you need something to kind of fill you up emotionally. And then I put the Grinch here because you have to be prepared and have a plan, which some people really struggle with, preparing and making a plan ahead of time. So when we talk about self-awareness, I had my challenge me about what our fears were, because I want to know what you guys were scared of nowadays. When I think scare, we think of our sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight system. So when we are in sympathetic nervous system, this is stress as well, we're in survival mode. So physiologically what our body's doing, our pupils dilate, we quit making saliva, which affects digestion. Our shoulders and neck get tight, and this is what I treat all day long. Shoulders are up at their ears. Your heart rate increases, you start to sweat, you're very tense, and you start having quick, shallow breaths. You start either hyperventilating or not breathing at all. Adrenaline is released, because that's our fight or flight hormone. So people that are constantly stressed or high strung, you're always in this mode. And guess what? Your digestion actually stops. Does anyone know why your digestion would stop?
It's like you're preparing for if you make an injury, you have to pull out something.
Yeah, your body thinks you're running from a tiger. Your body doesn't care about digesting your zone bar. So you're not digesting that. And I'll tell people who are stressed out, I'm like, your body, it doesn't matter how low I cut your food, if you continue with this high level of stress and anxiety and keep going at this pace, you cannot lose weight. Cortisol is being released, and everything that you're not digesting it. Digestion actually starts in the mouth with saliva, and you're not digesting anything. Our parasympathetic nervous system, sympathetic is called fight or flight, parasympathetic is called rest and digest. So guess what happens when your parasympathetics are taking over? You are digesting food. So our pupils constrict, we have saliva. It slows our heart rate down. Our stomach and our pancreas and our intestines are moving and moving contents through our digestive system. And it promotes erection of genitals. I didn't realize it was on there. I'm like, what's the last one? I'm like, lots of reasons to rest and digest. Obviously, reproduction is not important when you're running for tiger. So I want you to assess how you're feeling. We'll talk about that in a second in certain situations. Has anyone gotten an email from me that said this? Breathe. I get these highly anxious, I can just hear you like furiously typing and your shoulders are up here and like, you're almost hyperventilating in the email. I'm like, breathe. Breathe. We can fix anything that you do. There's nothing, you are okay. You are not running from a tiger. Yes, I realize today at work was stressful, but you can control your physiological response. When your body's up here and you're not breathing, you can't make good decisions. If we breathe and take a breath and know that we're okay, we're not going to die, we can then start to assess what's really going on. I think only 2 of you have gotten a breathe from me. So visualization, visualizing what we want and having that is so important. Visualizing our goal helps us to achieve it. So we all played the quarter game, correct? Who still has their quarter? Does anyone like really super slow reflexively at this? Stephanie, you are?
I'm not good at this.
Okay, so yeah, I'll show you how we do it. Now you guys all have to wake up.
Yeah.
It's 6:35, Kristen, so.
It's 6:35 if you have to go. I still have like the halt to do.
I know.
You don't want to
I was waiting for a halt and then.
Okay. It's hard with an audience. Let's have Marie come do it.
Oh gosh.
Okay. She was slower. What I want you to do, visualize the coin in your hand. Don't think about grabbing it. Just visualize the coin. Whenever you can see it in your hand, I want you to grab it. Did you see how much faster she was?
Yes.
It's crazy. Who is it?
It went.
Oh, here, I got one in my pocket. Try it again. So, don't think about grabbing it. Just visualize it in your hand.
I hit it.
That happens a lot. So try that. Try it again, especially if you were slow. You guys should still have your quarters around here. Try that. There's a lot to be said about having a goal and having that vision, and instead of thinking about the apprehension of grabbing the quarter, and some of you guys saw how quickly I can do it.
Yes.
I'm not up here. Just visualizing it and seeing the goal makes it a lot easier to get. So it's halt time.
Yay!
Yay!
Here, they're up there.
I still have it.
Oh, if I come over here, yeah, there's a lot. You all are gonna get, no one has a Holt magnet from last year? Okay, so you wanna do
You
that?
gave it to me.
Okay,
after
these are
when I
magnets
started.
for a mnemonic that I came up with last year called Holt. The 2013 version has the Grinch on it. So it's different from last year.
I need a new one.
Kim just has some because you're in front of it.
Sorry.
Holt is a mnemonic. And this is what I want you guys to do. When you're faced in those scary situations, I want you to halt. It stands for H, how am I feeling? And am I hungry? How am I feeling? Head to toe assessment. Where are my shoulders? Am I breathing? Am I stressed? Am I upset? Am I angry? Am I physiologically hungry? Being hungry is okay. Your stomach growling is okay. All your stomach growling is, it's baroreceptors in your stomach restarting the process of digestion. So when your stomach growls, it's taking any excess contents of your stomach and taking them through your GI tract. If your stomach growls after you eat, you guys know that it growls after you eat?
Yeah.
It's just baroreceptors in your stomach causing motion. Because there's food in it, you don't hear it. When there's no food in your stomach, or just a little bit, you hear it and your stomach growls. Physiological hunger is shaky, headachy. Has anyone ever been there? If you haven't eaten enough, that's physiological hunger. That's different than hunger. There are a lot of clients who grew up, and we all kind of grow up in families, you don't want to be hungry, so you're always feeding it. And being hungry, not physiologically hungry, being hungry, having your stomach growl and your stomach be empty is very uncomfortable. You associate it with being uncomfortable, but it's okay. You're not going to die. You have body fat stores for energy. If you're physiologically hungry and hypoglycemic, that's different. So ask yourself, am I physiologically hungry? When did I eat last? I ate 30 minutes ago. I'm not physiologically hungry. My stomach might not feel full, but I'm not hypoglycemic. And you can always, there's another opportunity to eat. You can eat when you get home. There's food everywhere. There's another opportunity to eat. So if you're not physiologically hungry, you will be later on, and then you can eat. I think just because I've had this lifestyle for so long, we were driving to Chicago for our Disney vacation, and I'd eaten Chipotle, and I ate way too much. And I knew I ate way too much, and it was time, 10 o'clock is usually when I have my late night snack, and I wasn't hungry, and I was so mad. Like, I want to be hungry. I actually want to feel hunger between my meals, because I know that I'm tapping into body fat in between my meals. That's when you're using body fat, is in that 3 to 4 hour window between meals. And I actually felt like, oh, I hate this feeling of being full, which is so different from where I would have been 3 years ago. I would have hated that sensation. But it's really just changing how you think about it. If you think when your stomach isn't completely full, that's when you're actually burning body fat and making progress. Sometimes a little bit easier, making a positive association with that feeling rather than, I'm hungry, I'm going to die. And I hear all the time, people like, I'm starving, I'm going to die. Like, you are not starving, you're not going to die. People in third world countries die from hunger, not Americans. So physical hunger, it comes on gradually and it can be postponed. Have you ever been hungry and then all of a sudden you got busy in something and you weren't hungry anymore? It's satisfied by any number of foods. If you're really hungry, you can eat just about anything. Once you're full, you're likely to stop eating and you don't feel guilty about it. I needed to eat. You eat chicken. I always say if chicken, or I don't know, if chicken and broccoli doesn't sound good, you're probably not physically hungry. Or I've been hypoglycemic where broccoli sounded good and tasted amazing. We don't want you to be there by any means. But if you're truly hungry, it can be satisfied with any number of foods. Emotional hunger feels sudden and urgent. It's in that moment where like I can only have the cocktail wieners. Like that's the only thing that is going to satisfy this right now is chocolate chip cookie dough or tortilla chips is a big one for me. Those are emotional hungers. And they have specific cravings. I want pizza. I have to have pizza. I have to have ice cream. That's emotional. That's not physical. And you tend to eat more than you normally would. And usually feel not so great about that afterward if you're on a weight loss plan. A is anytime. I can eat this anytime. You can have cocktail wieners anytime. They sell turkey ones at Walmart. You can have mashed potato casserole anytime. You don't just get it on Thanksgiving. Guess what? You can have pumpkin pie in July. It doesn't have the same emotional connection, but you can. What?
I've done it.
And I'm going to actually make you guys eat something as one of my challenges. I'm giving you guys a little heads up. You're going to have to eat something like pumpkin pie for breakfast.
Okay.
Just to prove that you can eat it anytime. You don't have to have 2 served, and I've done this myself. Instead of having 2 pieces of cake or a piece of pumpkin pie and pecan pie, I eat the next one the next morning before I work out. You can have it anytime. It's not, food's not going extinct. Grandma's pumpkin pie, pecan pie is not going extinct. You choose not to because you know physiologically what can happen. I'm not choosing this right now because I ate my relaxed meal last night. I can delay my gratification and this pie is still going to be just as good next week. I don't have to do it right this second. And that has a lot to do with feeling better in the moment versus our long-term goal. And you can also make a healthy version of just about anything on the planet out there. And I can get you recipes if you don't believe me. L, list the facts. List them. This pumpkin pie has X carbs, X fat, X protein. Checked it. You've taken all the emotional stuff out of it. I've already eaten this much fat, carbs, and protein. You can still have it. Okay, maybe you go over a little bit, but when you're objective and you list the facts, I guarantee you're not going to have 4 and 5 pieces. You're going to have half a slice, and that's okay. And if during the holidays, everyone goes over their numbers a little bit here and there, but being objective is much better than just denying that it has any proteins, carbs, or fats altogether. Where are my glycogen levels? Is my blood sugar unstable? If you overeat, like the day after Thanksgiving, you are going to be hungry. I'm assuming that will be your relaxed meal. You're going to eat more. That's perfectly fine. But as you're burning through that liver glycogen, you will feel unusually hungry the next day. And it's hard for some people to break that cycle. So be aware that when you overeat, you're going to be hungry, and your blood sugar, you're going to be knocked out of your nice stable zone that you're in, and you're cruising along. And it's a little uncomfortable to get through that, but just knowing what it is. And looking at food from an objective standpoint helps us from getting emotionally carried away. Because, there are emotional ties to food, and you're never going to break it. Some of them are healthy, and we can eat emotionally and have emotional, intimate relationships with food, but they have to be mindful. Tomorrow, how will eating this affect me tomorrow? Should I expect the scale to go up or down? Will I feel guilty or pleased? Will I have to adjust my plan for tomorrow? So we can do that. We can adjust your plan if you want to have certain things. If there's 2 events and you really want to work them both in, we can adjust it in the next couple of days. We can fix anything. And even if you screw up, I can fix it for you. I can tell you how to fix it. And I encourage you to be honest with yourself and with me so I can teach you in the future how to do that, how to fix it yourself. But you'll need a little bit of coaching the first couple of times through that. So it's the holidays, it's going to happen. We don't want it to happen every day. We want you to be careful, but if you overeat at Thanksgiving and you want to get the weight off really quickly, we can help you with that. And is it worth feeling blank tomorrow? Is it worth me sending the wrench an email? I never know. But sometimes we don't always think in the moment about how we're going to feel tomorrow. And usually that instant gratification that we get right in the moment carries with it negative emotion for 3 or 4 days afterward as you're trying to burn through it. And I've seen this so much with my clients. I'm like, if you can stop and be uncomfortable for an hour, it might feel uncomfortable not to have something or to say no. But I guarantee tomorrow you'll wake up, send me a happy email about how you had a small victory in your life and you feel good about it. And when we feel good about behaviors, guess what? We want to do them again. And we want to do them again. And then eventually they become habits. And eventually it's a lifestyle. So realize that being uncomfortable now will save me from feeling really shitty the next couple of days. So how am I feeling? Anytime. What's the facts tomorrow? Take your Hulk magnet and stick it somewhere where you're going to see it. On your desk, on your dashboard, on your refrigerator. Somewhere it's going to remind you to think through your food this holiday season. I'll just be really quick. When you go to a party, eat before. If you don't know what they're serving, find out. If it's a family member or a close friend, ask what they're having. If you know that it's just way off the charts for you, offer to bring something, or eat a little bit beforehand, eat a little bit there, a smaller portion, and eat a little bit more when you get home. When you go to your cocktail party and they have scary appetizers, eat a little bit before. Eat 1 or 2, eat a cocktail leader, eat the wings. They'll fit in your day. But don't plan on that being your dinner for the night. Plan on having something else when you get home. You can make appetizers for dinner. Make them healthy. So when hosting a party, you don't have to make everybody be on a diet plan. Like not everybody that comes to your house wants to eat the same food. Some people don't care if they want to eat what they want to eat. I always like to have healthy options if I'm cooking. I might have lower carb rolls and then the other stuff. And guess what? I'm always left with the other stuff and sending them home to people. Because most people, in reality, want there to be a healthy option if it's their healthy meal. But don't make everybody be on your plan. But maybe make a dessert that you don't love. I probably wouldn't make white Texas sheet cake because you had white. There's white banana and pumpkin. Yeah. I would not make that for a party because I'd send it home afterward. But make something like people. Pie that you really don't care about, but that your guests like. And have an alternative healthy dessert for you. So make maybe a healthy dessert and have them bring the unhealthy dessert. I always think it's harder. Do you guys find it harder when you've made the dessert if you're someone who bakes?
Yes.
Is it hard for you to resist your own baking? It is for me. Like if someone else brings it for some reason, I feel like I'm usually disconnected or something. And then if you have leftovers, send them home. Save cottage cheese containers and send home food. Don't leave it there. Because again, it's minimizing the impact of your environment. Dealing with, last thing I want to touch on, dealing with critical friends and family members. You will have people who won't say nice things. You will have people who won't tell you you look great when you've lost 80 or 90 pounds. It happens. And you can't expect that. And just realize that there are people, usually because they don't have, anyone who's been down this journey, and that's why I really encourage everyone to engage. If you've been down this journey and you know how hard it is, you notice when other people have lost weight and you say something positive. Correct?
Yes.
People that struggle and aren't in a good place with themselves, they're jealous and they don't say stuff. And it's very, across the board age ranges, I'm just floored by people that think, you really? I mean, they're maybe like my grandmother's age, and they say, like, my friends don't notice, and they don't say nice things. It just stinks across the board. People have that. We have some people that like to sabotage them, like forcing them to eat or making their favorite food just because they know that you'll go off the plan. Realize people that sabotage, and they're there, and there's nothing you can do about it, and you don't. I wouldn't bring it up. I would just let it go, and breathe, and move on. And don't feel obligated to explain what you're doing if someone's not being supportive. There will be people that back you in a corner and say, oh, you shouldn't eat carbs, and want to just obliterate everything that you, this is science, people. I'm not telling you anything that's not true. Ask me if you think that they're right, and I'll give you 100. If you've ever had a scientific explanation from me, you'll know that I'll give you a legitimate answer. But if someone's really just being nasty, don't feel obligated to explain yourself. Just say, no, it's working, and I have a really good support system, and move on. But don't let people who are negative, it puts you in a bad spot, and they don't, it's your journey, not theirs. And then I had a whole thing on pitfalls, but I'm going to stop it there because